What's up, everyone? Tyler Dunn at Go Long. Thank you so much for reading, for subscribing to your home for long-form journalism. We are completely powered by you. So if you can share this with a friend, we greatly appreciate it. And hey, new readers, new listeners, what a great time to subscribe. $8 a month, $50 for the year. Treat yourself, treat a loved one. It's the Christmas season, and we've got a great episode of How the NFL Works for you this week. Matt Hasselbeck always does an amazing job of connecting the best stories from his playing days with Brett Favre, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, to everything we see on the field today. So we really do get into the idea of just true belief in a quarterback, allowing that quarterback to play with freedom. It is a delicate balance, and we explore all angles, everything from the MVP race, Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, the ankle. So much of the NFL hinges upon that right ankle of Patrick Mahomes. What should the Chiefs do? And what about all of those rookies? Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. We get into how this rookie class is performing, and you're really going to appreciate Matt's sharp insight on all the above. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening and sharing with a friend. Here is Matt Hasselbeck on How the NFL Works. What a pleasure to welcome back, friend of the show, Pro Bowl quarterback, longtime quarterback, one of the absolute best analysts going today, Matt Hasselbeck. But we have to add high school football coaching legend. We'll call you a legend with the work you did this past fall.
There you go. Put it on my LinkedIn. There you go.
Well, fill everybody in on what we just talked about a little bit on. I mean, it's thrilling to get back into coaching, beat around kids, and have an undefeated regular season like you guys had.
Yeah, listen, it was a blessing in disguise. A couple of years ago, I got laid off by ESPN, totally blindsided by it, like didn't expect it. And, I was kind of upset. But it ended up being like the absolute best thing that could have ever happened to me. I basically was freed up to coach at my high school, to coach my son in his senior year. He was committed to go play lacrosse in college, and we really thought that was just it for him. He wanted to play football. No one really recruited him. And, I was able to spend a lot of time with him. We commuted to school together. It was like amazing family time that I never would have had with him otherwise, and got to coach him at my high school. The head coach there now was coaching there when I was playing in high school. So, it was just really, really cool. And we had a great run, and they won the state championship, and he won Gatorade Player of the Year and like all these awards. And then he started getting recruited for football. And so now he's playing college football. He's a quarterback at UCLA. And it just was this incredible thing for not only for him, for me, for our whole family. And my brother, Tim, who lives in Nashville, Tennessee, he got approached by the place where his kids go to school, where my kids went to school when I played for the Tennessee Titans. And they said, hey, would you ever consider coaching? We know you work at ESPN. And I think Tim saw what an amazing opportunity and what an experience it was for us. Basically for me, ESPN laid me off. So they did for me what I didn't have the courage to do. I didn't have the courage to quit a dream job to spend more time with family, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. And so they did it for me. So thank you to them. But I think my brother saw how valuable it was. And so he went to ESPN and was like, hey, listen, I'd like to basically take half of my job, which is college football's half and the NFL is half. And I would like to consider not doing the college part and just do the NFL part so that I could give back like my brother did and maybe coach, high school football. And by the way, his son is also at the time a sophomore quarterback who'd never played varsity, was going to be a junior. And so anyway, fast forward to the end of the story this year, my brother takes that job. He's the head coach at Ensworth in Nashville, and it's big time football. I got a little nervous as the older brother. I was like, oh boy, you don't even know what you're getting into. I saw firsthand for a couple of years how hard these high school football coaches work. It's not just show up on Friday nights. It's that's just the tiniest part of the job. And so I said, hey, I'm a volunteer. I've got, one more year where I can do this, and I'm going to come be your offensive coordinator. My dad was like, hey, I'll help coach the tight ends. My nephew's the quarterback. My brother's the head coach. It was just absolutely incredible. So much fun. And yeah, we had an undefeated season. It was super great. We ended up losing in the semifinal to Macaulay, who won the state championship there last year, won it again this year. They have an incredible program. But we're building something there, and Tim did an awesome job. And, really, I think, what I've told my wife, what my wife and I have talked about is, this is really a character development program disguised as a football program. And I think the winning, while it's awesome because you work so hard and, you want to win in everything you do, the winning is really cool because I think the kids buy into what you're selling life lesson wise because you're winning, and so I think that for us, we're trying to win, obviously, because we're trying to be the best that we can and do the best that we can do at everything that we're doing. But that's probably the coolest part. And Tim did an awesome job of putting together an awesome coaching staff with a lot of, some teacher, people that used to play or just used to coach. But it was definitely a team effort and, just a ton of fun.
It's phenomenal. I mean, the NFL throws around the football as family commercials, right? And then they tear families apart on Christmas with all these games and gouge people's wallets with streaming service. Oh, you can only watch this game. It's on Paramount or Netflix. And that is football as family. You're coaching with your brother and your dad's around and your kids. That's the dream. I mean, we would all think sitting around on an ESPN panel is the dream, talking about the news of the day, but it's got to be so unbelievably fulfilling, Matt.
Well, they're both awesome opportunities. I would say I'm going to steal this line from Trent Dilfer, who I worked with at ESPN before he became a high school coach, and now he's a college coach at University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. When he left, ironically, he got laid off at ESPN too, and he went into high school coaching. And I said, tell me about what, if you could say it in one sentence, how would you describe this? And I'll screw it up because he's better at these things than I am. But he said something like, that job was a paycheck, and I feel like this job is a purpose. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, but I don't fully know what that means. And I think I learned what that means through this process. And essentially, we coached some great players over the years. We've got players that are now at Liberty and Tennessee and TCU and Boston College and, all the places. But, that's a small percentage of those kids. I would say that 100% of those kids, though, are going to grow up to be adults, probably dads, husbands, leaders in their business, whatever. And so it's like you get an opportunity to kind of pour in to these young men who, quite honestly, need more of it. And you do it together with a collection of people that have basically given their lives to coaching high school sports or teaching high school math or English or history or science. And you lock arms with those guys, and it takes an army, it takes a village, to do it, to kind of strengthen those guys. And then honestly, just having a ton of pride at doing it at the place that meant so much to you as a high school kid. My high school, I went to this school called Xaverian. It's in Boston. We were the Hawks. There's a saying, they say Hawks for four, brothers for life. At the time, it was kind of yeah. These guys are my brothers, the 4-year guys. But it's bigger than that. It's literally anybody that went to school there. It's it's like a bond and a brotherhood. And so I don't know, it just, it all kind of makes sense. And so I've learned a lot from veteran quarterbacks that were just a little bit older than me in my career. Usually people are talking about, when Doug Peterson taught me what an underfront was instead of an overfront, usually that's what they're talking about. And that's true. But no, it's actually been much more than that. So I'm grateful for those guys that have been in my life that have kind of paved the way and are continuing to do that too.
So cool. I just want to talk about this forever. I mean, there's so many just life lessons, just organically kind of baked into the sport, I can just remember playing quarterback, 22 jet pass. You ride the fullback, you take one step back, and all you had to do was pull the trigger and know you're going to get hit and just trust that it's going to be there. Throughout practice, throughout camp, no problem hitting this deep ball. Get into the first game junior year, and he's wide open, and I see it, and I just, didn't do it. There's a little hesitancy. I don't know if it's anxiety, whatever it is. you get yelled at by your coach, you do it next time, and like you don't look back, whether it's like that or you're in the trenches, fourth quarter, just a couple minutes left, you got to dig. I know football just teaches you so much about life. I mean, you can directly apply things you learn in high school football to anything you do in life.
Yeah, and at least for me in my career, high school, Pop Warner, like to go wherever you want to go, pros. I don't think I learned nearly as much from the good things. I don't remember like throwing 5 touchdown passes against the New York Giants or like I don't remember that stuff. I remember the missed opportunities, the incompletions, the sacks, the fumbled snaps, the interceptions, that kind of stuff. But you learn so much from those. And I forget who I heard say this. It could have been Brett Favre. It was somebody like that. And it was talking about like, there's this moment as a quarterback, like right as you let the ball go, like the ball is like literally in your hand. And like, you just have this like feeling like something's off, like something's not right. And you just let it like go a little high and right and just like a fastball. And I think it was Brett. It might not have been Brett, but I think it was Brett because he's the guy that I remember in my career that like threw the ball so stinking hard that defenders dropped a lot of interceptions because it was just like, I don't know if anyone could catch that ball. It was such a fastball, and he probably told this story with like humor, but then he got like a little serious. And it was kind of like, no, there's this moment like right before you let the ball go, you're like, no, I've done that one before. I'm not doing it again. And, I think in my career, like you definitely have those moments where it's just like something's not right or, like I'm going to let this one go. And it's like half throwaway, half like, I don't know, Yeah. And anyway, I guess the point is you definitely learn from the downs more than the ups.
And then when I guess this is the segue, just the joy of the sport and everything that football can kind of give you at a young age. I don't know. You watch the Green Bay Packers and what they did. This is a bunch of 24 and 25-year-olds. Like you don't know what you don't know. Ignorance is bliss. They had the one playoff loss, so there's some scar tissue there. But what do you see in this team? I mean, we've got a lot of Packer listeners, readers here. I don't know. I mean, they took it. This is, the Matt Hasselbeck Bowl, I suppose, out there in Seattle. So I imagine you're watching.
I got a few of those now. Those. But yeah, that's the original for me. A lot of friends. In fact, like Mike Holmgren did the intro to the Sunday Night Football, and it was. It was like, he was talking about the Packers as we, and it was so funny because when he was my head coach with the Green Bay Packers, he would always, I'm talking, he was like just a different guy when we played the 49ers because that was his old team. And he was, he coached Joe Montana and he coached Steve Young and he had all these years with Bill Walsh and all this stuff. And he grew up in the Bay Area. And so like everyone in the entire organization, it'd be like Gil Haskell and Nolan Cromwell and all the guys would be like, hey, careful. Don't be careful around Mike this week. We're playing. It's Niners week. And so it was always like whenever it was Niners, Packers, Mike Holmgren and like the rest of them. And even Andy, he was from San Fran. And like, it was different and it was a different week. And I came into it. I came onto the Packers. I was drafted in 98, kind of draft class of like Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf that year. The year before, the Packers had lost the Super Bowl to the Denver Broncos. The year before that, they had won the Super Bowl. But their like kryptonite for a while was the 49ers. And they would talk about it. It would come up in the cut-ups. There was like this muddy game, I remember, where it either did or didn't go their way. But it was almost like I come in as a rookie and I'm thinking like, oh, wow, this is so awesome, man. We're on the Packers. Brett Favre's the MVP. You guys have been to 2 Super Bowls in a row. You guys are afraid of nothing. And, when it was Niners week, it was like, oh, boy, like ball better not touch the ground. Mike Holmgren's going to be on edge. Anyway, so like when he did that Sunday Night Football promo and it was like, these are my 2 teams, Packers, Seahawks. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess this was weird not hearing the Niners in there because that was sort of what built him. It built him and made him the great Hall of Fame coach of the Green Bay Packers. And so, and then like when you get to Seattle, what built him, to to everyone there was the Packers. But I think I got that glimpse of that year of like knowing all the Joe Montana stories and, basically like, I don't know, not to go too deep in it, but like there were a lot of plays in that Packers offense that only Joe Montana ran because he was right-handed. And then there were some that only, like, for example, Q8 was to the right, evens to the right, odds to the left. Q8 was always Joe Montana. And Q9 was always Steve Young because he was lefty. And Brett wanted to run Q9 sometimes. And Mike was like, no, you're righty. We're going Q8. And then finally he's like, all right, let's try Q9. And then like when Brett was like design run to his left, that's when sometimes crazy stuff would happen. He'd spin around or, throw it lefty or like something crazy. And that would like blow a gasket on Mike Holmgren. Anyway, the moral of the story is that he would always come back to in his coaching points like, all right, listen, Joe Montana did it this way. Steve Young did it this way. So like we learned that Packers offense, I feel like in large part because how Mike Holmgren taught it, and he would teach it exactly the way that he taught it to Joe Montana and those guys. And then in Seattle, I bet you if you asked the people that were in Seattle with me, he taught it basically the way Brett did it, and very, very little did he mention Joe or Steve. Unless he was really, really mad at me, then he would always mention Steve Young. Like that was like a common thread. And then I worked with Steve Young for a while at ESPN, and I'm like, I get it. Like when he would yell at me sometimes, he'd be like, you're acting like Steve Young right now. And I would be like, I'm totally good with that. Like he's great, And then I work with Steve, and like he's I don't know. He's like, it's so funny. Like our bosses at ESPN would be getting on him and he'd be over there doodling. And then, they'd be ripping him about like, hey, can you make sure that your tie is tied for TV? And he'd be like, just doodling or something and be like, sorry, what were you saying? I wasn't listening to anything you just said. It's kind of like this kind of, he's like very funny. And anyway, but
you should throw like TJ Rubley right now or something, pull a deep cut.
There's a name. But I think for the Packers, like, there is this like, if you're super young, there is this naiveness and just like youthful joy that you really don't understand the pressure. And like, I remember, and I think that's a great thing, by the way. Like, I think it's a great thing. It reminds me of 2001 when Tom Brady was a rookie and he's out there playing on a 2-minute drive in the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not sure he fully felt the pressure of that the way that he felt the pressure in later Super Bowls. Like, I remember, like, like for me, when people talk Packers Seahawks, they probably think first of the interception that I threw to Al Harris in the 2003 wild card game. That was our first wild card. But like, I mean, there's actually some awesome stuff for me in that game, in that was a game we didn't expect to be in the playoffs. It was our first one. No one believed in us. I don't think we believed in us. And we had played the Packers earlier that year, and it was all tense. It was like, oh my gosh, you're going back playing your old team. Like, you better, control your emotions and, don't get too high and, don't have too much fun. This is really important. And like, that's how I played, and that's how we played in that first matchup. In the second matchup, the wild card, it was like this free gift. I didn't know I was going to get to go back to Lambeau in the winter. And like it was like so cool. And I just remember one of the lessons that I learned from being there, like with Brett, it was like, don't make this a job. Like, make this super fun, cut it loose, like do what got you here. And what got you here? What got you here was like balling out with your friends, like on Thanksgiving, like in cold weather, having fun, cutting it loose. And that's the best way to play. That's how he played. And, there's a fine line there, like where you got to like, kind of like in golf, like cut it loose, have no fear. And yet also like, use your brain a little bit. So like there's a fine line, but so like I think that was like one of the games for me in my career where I learned, and that was in 2003 season playoff, where I learned to actually do it. And, the next year we lost in the wild card on the last play of the game and a pass in the end zone. But I think it was those two losses that, at least in Seattle for us, when we went on a run, those two losses helped propel us to the Super Bowl the next year in 2005. And I don't know. So like I just sitting in all these meetings with NFL coaches as a player over the course of like 18 years, you see that these coaches are trying to get the team to have something really unique and special in terms of camaraderie, in terms of like cut it loose, play fast. And teams like the Packers, like these young teams, like you can have it naturally, and like they have it naturally. So if you can get it, take advantage of it while you have it. And I see that in them recently. I see them in the pack. I see that in this young Packers team. They are the youngest team in the league, and they don't play like it, but they do in the sense that they're just out there cutting it loose, having fun, and they don't even wait, what? Seattle's like a really hard place to play. Yeah, we're gonna open the game with like with two passes. Oh, we're gonna audible at the line of scrimmage. We're gonna use a hard count. We're gonna we don't care, and it's just like such a contagious thing, and it was cool to see. If you like rooting for underdog situations, I thought it was really cool to see.
I mean, yeah, like the 2014 NFC Championship game that, has scarred the fan base to this day. They're 13, 14 years old watching that thing.
Is that the game in Seattle? Is that the game in Seattle, the John Ryan fake field goal?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And listen, there's a lot of those games that I do think that you learn from, like even, like I learned from the Al Harris pick, like it isn't like, oh my God, it was like a bigger deal now than it was then. But like I learned from that. I think the very next week, the Packers learned from the 4th and 20, whatever, with the Eagles game. I think
26.
The Packers probably also learned from that NFC Championship game, even to me, like that season, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, those were two of the guys that were best at using the hard count, free play, everyone go long. Like that is like a weapon that a lot of teams, even to this day, it's crazy to me how remedial some offenses are. They get you to jump, and the teams literally coach their offensive linemen to stand up, touch the guy, and now it's 1st and 5. It's like, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, take the free play. Like, take the amount of touchdowns that Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and then eventually, like, I think when Darrell Bevell went to Seattle, then eventually, like, Russell Wilson, the amount of free play touchdowns, big plays, pass interference, like all the stuff that those quarterbacks got on those kinds of plays. And that same year, I don't know if it was that game or that same season, the Seahawks basically got to the Super Bowl because they were so good at taking advantage of the free play. And now even in 2024, I see teams going into 2025. I literally see teams like somebody jumps off sides. They don't snap it. They don't go deep. They literally coach their tackle to like stand up and act like the guy drew you off sides, and they get the 5 yards. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's league. Like
get the big
it's
play.
Literally it's the difference between good and great, literally.
Yeah. But this concept of Green Bay just not knowing what they don't know, right? You're right. I think there are a lot of coaches that would love to instill that feeling into their players, and they're probably studying speeches at all hours of the night, trying to figure out how to get my team to play loose and play free. But it's almost like telling one of your friends who's, stressing out over something, like, quit stressing out, like, just relax. Why can't you just relax? Like, it's not going to do anything. Like, you either have it or you don't most of the time. And Green Bay's in this great spot where they kind of do have that playoff loss to learn from. San Francisco last year, Jordan Love throwing it across his body. They gave that game away, yet they're still so young that you can just kind of get on a roll and play freely.
Yeah, and there's confidence that comes with focus and preparation, and like, you hear people say like I don't know why, but in quarterbacking, a lot of times they use golf analogies, but like fight fear with focus, like if you get nerves at all, just like focus in more. And I, for me anyway, I always appreciated like repping things in practice. Like if I could, just the muscle memory of it. And a lot of times, like even the first time in Seattle that we went to the Super Bowl, I think that we had like no idea that that was going to be our year. Like there were years where people picked us to go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. And like, we had to talk about it the whole year. And then the first year that like Seattle went, for us, it was literally like, we didn't talk about it one time. Yeah. And it was just like really just all about the football. And I think that's an interesting thing about this Packers team. That's not a question that they're asking. Like, what's everyone talking about? They're talking about Detroit. They're talking about Minnesota. Like, that's just in that division. They're talking about Philly. Everyone always talks about Dallas. They're talking all about Chicago and their quarterback and like, whose fault is it? And like, they're running out of people to blame. So like, that's what they're talking about. And so like for the Packers, I feel like they've talked about mostly football, injuries, sure, but mostly football, not a ton of drama. And that's why I think you can go into like kind of a hostile situation where it's hard to hear the play call. It's hard to know exactly what we're doing. Are we all on the same page? And, you know, they've weathered the storms and they're getting healthy and hot at the right time. And it's something that Mike Holmgren said in that Sunday Night Football intro. He said, all you got to do is get in the tournament and like really, and then get hot at the right time. And now with 7 teams in each conference getting into the tournament, like, yeah, you all got a shot. Only one team gets that first round bye, and that could be bad for some people. You know, they get a little, I don't know, rusty or something like that. So, yeah, we'll see. This is, I'm impressed with what I've seen, and there's individual things that I'm impressed with, but just globally, I think like these guys have the makings of what it takes to be special.
Well said. And before I forget to, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. What's it really like with Mike Holmgren when, I mean, I can't imagine what his expectations are, his demands are. You go Joe Montana, Steve Young, Brett Favre, and now you're the handpicked one to be the quarterback, to bring the Seattle Seahawks back. Day to day, I'd imagine the standard is fairly high and maybe unrealistic at times when Mike is kind of riding you.
It was great for me because I had gotten this glimpse of seeing him rip Brett Favre to shreds and rip Andy Reid like every day. You know, like literally, like we had a rule, like the ball was not allowed to touch the ground. Like it just was like, ball's not allowed to touch the ground. Now he would script practice in such a way that like, if we were going to run a certain play, if we were going to run red, right, 22 Texas, you know, whatever, was hoping it'd be cover 2 in the game. We would get cover 2 in practice. Like, hey, if we were going to run 22 Z in, we're going to get cover 3 week, you know, because that's what he was hoping to get in practice. If we were going to get cover 1, he's going to run Z drive or 72X shallow cross. It's like, so he was scripting for a little bit of success because he was saying, hey, I'm going to call the right play at the right time. And if I don't, you know, just bail me out. Let's just, you know, get me 2nd and 4. It was kind of the mindset. But the rule was you are not allowed to have the ball hit the ground in practice. Like you can't. Now, the other rule was do it my way. Like do it exactly how I'm telling you to do it. And if it doesn't work, then that's on me. It's not on you. Okay. You're doing what I asked you to do. And so like, as a player, like there's this, you know, like you're trying to cut it loose and play free and have fun. And yet you're also trying to do exactly what the coach on the sideline, you're trying to be the coach on the field. You know, it's like, you got to like check your ego at the door. And, you know, like, like Brett, where he would get in trouble, where he would get yelled at is mostly like, there's usually like a guy on a love of the game route, LOG, love of the game. Like you're just running is, you know, I'm thinking like Bill Schrader, you know, someone really fast who's not making a ton of money. Like he's running straight down the field as fast as he can. And we're looking at him, but we're really not throwing it to him. We're throwing it to like Antonio Freeman or Robert Brooks on an 18-yard in route, like a dagger route. And so we've got the love of the game route. We're just looking there. And then all of a sudden here comes like the guy that's making all the money that we're trying to throw the ball to. And Brett would look there and like under something in him would be like, I can make this completion, you know, and he'd launch it, you know, like as far as he could, love of the game, you know, and like it was actually a good throw and it's just like off his fingertips and like incomplete 2nd and 10. And like Mike would lose his mind, like ball's not allowed to be on the ground. Like, what are you doing? And instead of yelling at Brett, he would yell at Andy Reed, the quarterback coach, who's standing next to Brett. And it was way more effective because if he had yelled at Brett would have been like, well, it was, whatever. But he's yelling at Andy. And so Brett's like, oh, well, shoot, man. Like, I feel bad now. Andy's getting yelled at for something I did. Like this is like weird dynamic, but it was also awesome. So anyway, long story short, when I was in Seattle and Mike would yell at me, even when I felt like I was completely right, like, dude, the ball hit the guy in the hands. He should have caught it. Like, what are you talking about? That was actually a good idea. He'd yell at me and I'd feel like I was 100% right. In my head, I was kind of like, well, he yelled at Brett like way worse than that. So like, if he can yell at Brett, he can definitely yell at me. So, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know.
I can remember Bill Schrader being in his doghouse too for an extended period of time. So I think he got yelled at.
I thought Packer fans felt that way because he grabbed him one time, like on Monday Night Football or some game before I got there. But I'll tell you, like, Green Bay had some great receivers. Like Billy Schrader's one of the best athletes I ever played with, ever. And, he did have a little bit of that track and field like mindset about him that isn't maybe exactly what the football mindset is sometimes in terms of like, like I could see him getting a flag on special teams or something like that. But no, we had Donald Driver was a late round draft pick. Corey Bradford was one of the fastest guys I ever played with. Derek Mays had incredible hands. Like there was some really good, like the Packers did well at the wide receiver position for years. People like to say, oh, they're amazing with quarterbacks. They are. But I think they've done a pretty good job with wide receivers as well.
It's such a balance too. And it seems like Mike Holmgren kind of understood that in terms of how he would coach you guys day to day, where like you want your quarterback playing free and liberated and taking chances. Yeah, you also have all of these rules in your head of how the position should be played and the play that you're calling and how you want it executed. All of that. I mean, we see it here in Buffalo. Like into last year, Sean McDermott is talking about, all right, let's limit risk taking. Let's not throw it in the double coverage. Let's slide. Let's step out of bounds. And I was fairly critical of that because I feel like a quarterback is an artist. Like just get out of his way. Let him create, like a comedian. And you don't tell Dave Chappelle to tone it down. Like you don't tell Josh Allen to tone it down. And it seems like this year, I mean, he's the MVP of the league right now. And Sean is saying all of the right things. For the most part, coaching like he believes in his team and his quarterback. 4th and 2, Kansas City. We're going for the 2-score lead. That kind of stuff. But is like to you, what is that balance? What is the perfect balance? And trying to, I remember Brett telling us on this show, like Mike Holmgren over time just stopped putting that deep route in the play if he didn't want him throwing it deep in that situation because Brett said, I'm going to take that every time. So maybe that's part of it.
Listen, there's a lot that goes into it. Like I remember a game we were playing the New York Giants and we put in this play, 22 Texas halfback burst, the Y's on a post, the tight end's on a post, and Mike Holmgren's installing the play and he's like, quarterback, where are you? And he's like, take your pen out, scratch this guy out. I want you looking there. Under no circumstances are you allowed to throw it here to the tight end or just looking there. You're a decoy. And he says it to the tight end. Tight end, sorry, I'll get another play for you. You're just looking there. Anyway, we run the play. I drop back and he's open and I throw it and it's a touchdown. And I'm like, oh, crud. Like I come running off the sidelines right by Mike and I'm like, he's going to rip me, And he was like, great job. And it was like, oh, like, so like, he's human and we're on the same team. He wants the right thing. Like basically he's giving you like parental instructions, but it's like, obviously, I want you to do what the right thing to do is, And so like, I don't know. So like he is a pretty wise coach. It's the reason why he's, I think going to be into the Hall of Fame. He deserves that. But I think you can also coach. And I saw this with Brett. I saw this when I was with Andrew Luck. I saw this myself even. You can coach that cut it loose mentality that you're seeing from Josh Allen. And yet we want to protect your body. We want to protect the football. We want to protect, like there's ways to do it. And like some phrases that I've heard from some of the great coaches are like things like, This was one from Clyde Christensen, a great quarterback coach, to Andrew Luck. Okay, here's our goal for the next month. Let's see if for 4 games, for 4 weeks, let's see if this can be our goal. We're going to start with this. Write this on your bathroom mirror and look at it when you brush your teeth, okay? Less adventure on our throwaways. So like to Josh Allen as an example. You're going to do all this stuff, all this craziness, be Superman, put your cape on, but you don't have to throw the ball away with 3 guys dragging on you as you're letting it go. The ball goes 4 yards. You take another hit in the face. Your ankle's getting twisted. Like, just throw it away with less adventure. Just a little bit, like give up on the play a little bit, like maybe after 3.9 seconds instead of 4.2 seconds. That's it. Like if that's our goal, and like you can see that you still get to be Superman, you still get to save the day when you play. We're probably talking about like 4 to 6 plays a game, that you're not getting like all gummied up playing Twister, because you just like, you know what, let's just live to play another day. You know, like a mindset like that. Or even in the designed run game that I think the Bills are doing such a good job of right now. They're not just running him to run him. They don't call in the first quarter like, let's call zone read, you know, power left, quarterback right. Like they wait and see till like they've got 3 quarters in. They fully can sort of say as an offensive staff, this is the front we're getting. This is the coverage. This is how they're doing it versus this look, this run. And then they absolutely put the, you know, like put the nail in the coffin, like put the pedal down, like finish, close the door, slam it shut, finish games with Josh Allen as a runner in the second half. But they're not coming out in their first 15 on purpose, you know, putting him in harm's way the same way. So, you know, and then they give him the freedom, like you've seen it, you give him the freedom to just sometimes just not hand the ball off. Like there was a game this year where it was like a toss to the right and he saw the front and he saw the defensive lineman who had contained and he was just like, oh, I'm faster than that guy. And he literally faked the pitch. The running back was expecting the ball. He didn't get the ball. And he was just like, oh, that's just Josh being Josh. I'm just going to keep on going. You know, like he's Superman and he just did his own thing. Or you saw the play where the wide receiver has the ball and he's like, oh, there's Josh here, lateral it, like we're out at recess and you go score. Like there is some freedom. You can let the guy play free and let his teammates feel like he's Superman, not Clark Kent. But there are some ways to study, okay, how do quarterbacks get hurt? When do they get hurt? You know, like, and how do we protect you? And how do we protect the ball? And I think that's probably the biggest thing is that he's protected the ball much better this year as well.
Man, so perfectly put. I mean, you can see it. Like he has that part of his brain where that 4th and 2 play. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo, I think he had an incredible call. I think they were showing man, and then it becomes zone, and there's like that split second where Josh Allen's looking at it like, oh shit, okay, I'm going to smash all the buttons and just take this game over. And that's what he does. So he has that in him.
Yeah, but you know what? I think like, you know, yeah, but one of the great things that quarterback coaches can do is instead of like a lot of people coach up like I hear it on TV all the time. You know, oh, is it man? He knows it's man. He knows it's zone. Like he knows it's like, I don't know, like I thought Brett did a great job of this. My second year in Green Bay, Mike McCarthy was the quarterback coach. He was a really good coach. He worked so hard. He had every analytic. He was doing analytics before anybody was doing analytics. He had every stat. And Brett was like, I just remember we'd go through like this like big stat meeting about blitz. And Brett would be like, so what? Like, okay, great. 67% of the time. Fine. But so what? That doesn't mean they're going to do it this time. 67%, like, which is a very high number. Like anything over 35% is like in football, quarterbacking is like, oh man, they're 35% blitz. Whoa, antenna up, red alert, 35%. And Brett was just like, so what? but I think what ended up happening that year and what happens with the best quarterback coaches is they get into this this mode of, instead of like caring like exactly what the defense is it 2-man, is it 2, is it cover 1, is it cover 3? You get into this mode of like, okay, here's the play call. What would be my problem? Like, well, what if it's man? I don't care. What if it's zone? I don't care. What if it's a corner blitz? Oh, that would be a major problem. Like, or what if it's a cloud corner? Oh, that would be a major problem. So much like a baseball hitter, you're not up at bat, like waiting for like every pitch that could come. You're kind of like sitting in there and be like, I just hope it's not that one pitch. If it's anything besides that one pitch, I'm good. But you just take this mindset of like, on every single play, what would be the kryptonite here? And it could be for me, the quarterback, but it could also be for like our center who's playing, Aaron Donald or JJ Watt or somebody. Like, if we have Aaron Donald as a 3 technique on this run, there's no chance our center is going to get back and block that, like, get out of this play. And so like, that's where I think like the quarterbacking 101 goes to like graduate level, where you're understanding the problem, not only of you, but of everybody else. And that's where I see some of the guys who are just doing it at a ridiculously high level. And I would say, like, just to use a couple examples, Josh Allen would be one, Matthew Stafford recently would be another. These guys are doing so much at the line of scrimmage, getting their team into the perfect play. And I think that was one of the sort of like the blessings of what I had in Seattle with Mike Holmgren as my head coach. We were getting into the perfect play against the perfect front, against the perfect coverage so often because of his game planning, his play calling, his simplification of like I had coaches after him. They're like, oh, we're going to, motion the tight end so we know if it's man or zone on this play. And it'd be like, I don't care if it's man or zone. Like Brett would actually say this a lot as just being funny. He'd be like, we'd call a play and be like, oh, I love that play. It's good versus man and zone. It's like, well, there's nothing else. Like, what else is there? So, or if he hated a play, that's probably more how he'd say it. He'd be like, I don't really like this play. It's not good versus man or zone. It's like, wait, what? So
that's great. Stuff. Who is the MVP of the league? Is it? I mean, I'm making it seem like it's a done deal. Is it to you?
Everyone's making it seem like it's a done deal. I don't think so. I don't think it's a done deal. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have something to say about it. Lamar gets to play Pittsburgh on a Saturday game, national TV, like a standalone game. There's only 2 games that day. The other one's Houston, Kansas City. If Mahomes doesn't play, I doubt people really watch that game the same way. They're going to watch Lamar versus Russell Wilson. They're going to watch Baltimore, Pittsburgh. It's going to be an epic matchup. He could go off. I think the Steelers, I think everyone thinks of the Steelers because they're leading the division right now. They think like, oh, the Steelers are up here and Baltimore's down here. I don't see it that way. I think Baltimore's a legit force. I think Lamar, he's going to have 3 weeks here to show that he's been ridiculous lately. And I think he's been ridiculous under the radar. So not to take anything away from Josh, he's probably my favorite quarterback to watch. But I just think that there's more football to be played. And, if for whatever reason Josh Allen regresses and throws a couple head scratcher interceptions in the red zone in this last, part of the season, and Lamar does what Lamar has been doing, like throwing more touchdowns than incompletions, and then he has a crazy highlight reel run. Yeah, look out. I mean, it could be a split vote. They could share it. Lamar could come, the tortoise and the hare, we'll see. Like, you never know, but it's definitely fun to talk about. And right now, no doubt it's Josh Allen, but it's it's not a 15-game season.
So like quarterback to quarterback, what do you love most about Lamar Jackson's game? Because he is kind of doing it all right now.
Well, I think what I love the most is that, and I don't understand, like, he doesn't get credit for what he is as a pocket passer, as a full field pocket passer. A lot of quarterback coaches, like, they'll cut the field in half and they'll say like, okay, if it's zone, play over here. And if it's man, play over here. So it's like 1, 2 is your progression, 3, or on this side, 1, 2, check down 3. And I don't know. I don't really love the paint by numbers. Like, I just think it limits what you can be. It's like painting in black and white. Like, sure, it can be awesome, but like, I think it's limiting. Lamar has a huge portion of his passing game that is a full field, pure progression passing game. He'll literally start way to the left and end up way to the right, or vice versa. And I just think because he's such an amazing runner, probably the most explosive runner that's ever played, you kind of like, I don't know, don't give him the credit he deserves for some of that other stuff. So I do love watching that part of his game.
It is fascinating though. Mike Tomlin's had his number. I think he's more terrified of a Joe Burrow than a Lamar Jackson. I guess we'll see what happens this time around, but he's had his way with Lamar.
Yeah, you're right. And I think because it's a team sport, it's not a one person thing. When Baltimore plays people, they're usually the more athletic team and the more physical team. Like they take the fight to you. People are a little intimidated by Lamar as the runner, his speed, athleticism. Now they got Derrick Henry, but Pittsburgh, at least the last time they played, Pittsburgh was more physical. Pittsburgh was more athletic. They got guys that can set an edge. As a wide receiver in the last game, I think it was maybe a 2-point play or a goal line play, and they tried to run basically Lamar on a kind of like a quarterback toss sweep, and they had a wide receiver. Baltimore had a wide receiver trying to block. I think it was a linebacker type. And like, if there's a saying, like, no edge, no chance. If you can't set the edge as a blocker or as a defender, you have no chance to be successful. And it's really just that physicality that Pittsburgh, they're not intimidated by it. And there's an intangible when you play a guy like Lamar Jackson. Most teams, they get intimidated. Like pass rushers don't pass rush. They pass rush and they're like, okay, don't lose contain. It's just different. And the Steelers understand Lamar. They just understand it all. And I think they don't have like big, slow, typical defensive end type, like the Michael Strahan type, to use a guy from my generation. He was like the perfect defensive end, but he would struggle if you left him in space with like a zone read quarterback. That wasn't his game. Even like a DeMarcus Ware, like that wasn't his game. TJ Watt, like that style of guy, like he's more linebacker than he is D end, and so like I think it gives you a little bit of an athleticism bump.
And I know we keep coming back to football being this human game, especially at the quarterback position. And what do we see Patrick Mahomes do? He just doesn't matter if he's got one good leg. It doesn't really matter if his receivers are dropping everything. Like all he does is win games, win Super Bowls. So maybe he should just play and everybody should quit freaking out. But I don't know if you've had high ankle sprains. I mean, you've had all sorts of injuries. When he did it 2 years ago, he had to play with it for 2.5 games, and you had that week by before the Super Bowl. It was a little different than now to hoist another Lombardi at 6 weeks. To me, I feel like a healthy Mahomes, supercharged for a postseason run, is probably more important than locking up the number 1 seed at Arrowhead. But because you could have both. I mean, who knows? Maybe Carson Wentz wins you a game or two. He could have a whole month off before they play a playoff game. What do you think he's going through as a competitor? And I mean, Andy Reid, what's his role in this all?
Yeah, a lot of layers to this one. I think that people are learning that an athletic training room can be the difference in a team winning or losing. You go back to that Super Bowl, and look, one of the very first things that Patrick Mahomes said is he was like, I'd like to thank the athletic trainer, I'm blanking on her name right now, but I'd like to thank her, because without her, I wouldn't have been able to get out here. And they have a great athletic training staff in I almost said Philly, in Kansas City. It's actually the crew that came, a lot of the people that came from Philly with Andy Reid. It was like the first thing he did. He's like, no, I'm bringing Rick Burkholder, like I'm bringing the team, like they're important to winning. And I think winning organizations understand that there's other people in the organization that contribute greatly to winning that don't wear a helmet on game day. And so I think that's one thing. The unique thing here is they've got a short week. They've got that other nationally televised standalone game. So they've got a game in 6 days, but they also, if you look beyond that, they play on Christmas Day. So they play basically 2 games in 5 days. So there is something to talk about here with this. My experience, though, dealing with Mike Holmgren and injuries that I had, or coaches and injuries that I had, and watching in my time in Green Bay, watching Andy Reid talk to Brett Favre about injuries that he had, they would usually say something like this: okay, you want to play? Because Mahomes is going to want to play. Like that, that's the competitor he is. He wants to send a message to his team like, hey, we're all sucking it up with injuries. I'm with you. I'm one of you. I'm not leading from I'm behind. I'm kind of like charging ahead with you. So I think the coaching talk usually goes like this: okay, we'll let you play, but you need to play differently. You need to protect yourself. You need to throw the ball on time. And the way that I usually talk about it, and this is how I talked about it with Andrew Luck when I was with teammates with him when he was battling injuries. Okay, if you're going to play in this game, you need to play like you're 40 years old. Like you need to like not rely on scrambling for 15 yards and like, juking people out. Like you literally need to try to play like you're a pocket passer with no mobility and see if you can slice and dice a defense from the pocket. And if you almost approach it like that, like it's a challenge, like see if you can use that superpower in this game to get us a win. I think it works with these like thoroughbred type quarterbacks that are like not normal. They're like racehorses that just need to be trained and thought of differently, spoken to differently, fed differently, like just like all of it. I think if you say like, okay, let's see if this is like a foreshadow into the later years of your career. Let's just see if you can go win us one on one leg, slicing and dicing. And there's no doubt that he's talented enough to do that. But there also needs to be a threat, and there also needs to be consequences. And I think like there aren't a whole lot of people that could stand up to a Patrick Mahomes. I think Andy Reid certainly can. And the threat is, all right, if you take unnecessary hits, if you pump fake at any point or like whatever, like you're coming out. You're going to watch from the sideline with me. You're going to watch someone else run your offense. You're going to watch someone else quarterback your team. And it's literally like parenting. It's kind of like, oh no, I don't want that to happen. So I think that's a little bit of like what will actually be said in the quarterback room. And it'll be a meeting where it'll be driven by doctors, athletic trainers, the athlete, but then the coach is going to come in and, I don't know, be the principal, so to speak.
You're also dealing with Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., TJ Watt, AJ Highsmith, Alex Highsmith. Sorry. You're dealing with a lot of edge rushers who might get to you. Anyway.
I will say though,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, might not even matter.
I'll say that though, like never, ever was I ever in a medical meeting going into a game about an injury where that conversation happened. Like, in fact, I should say that's not true. Like one time it did happen. One time a team doctor was dealing with an injury that I had, and he said in a meeting with the athletic trainers and like the head coach liaison, he was like, I don't know if you should play this game because, and then he mentioned like a football player on the other team or like a defensive coordinator. Like, I don't know if you play in this game. They got Ray Lewis and Rex Ryan as the D coordinator. It was like a blow up. Like, I forget, I think it might have been the athletic trainer who was kind of like, hey, that's not your job. Like, you worry about whatever the injury, the MCL. You tell us about the MCL. We'll tell you about the football player and the movements. You let the coaches worry about, are we going to naked bootleg to the right or to the left? Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone stay in their area of expertise, in a sense. So I really don't think, contrary to what people might think, I don't think that ever has come up, or I don't think that comes up in the conversation. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, the Steelers blitz a lot and and Houston doesn't, or it's like, it doesn't, I don't think that's That's usually that's not something I've ever really heard, or I guess I heard
But
it
an
once.
ankle can get worse,
didn't go over well,
and worse too, right? I mean, we did see it 2 years ago. He re-injured the thing, and if they had to play another game or two or three, who the hell knows if he would have been able to?
And that's the real question, and that's the expertise that comes in with the medical staff, particularly the doctors, where they'll say like, okay, if he plays on this injury, this type of injury, tell us, doc. Is this something that's just going to be a pain management thing, or is this something where he could make the injury worse? And usually it's been my experience where the doctors will say, they'll tend to say more, no, this won't make the injury worse. This is just a pain management thing. And me and the athlete, me as the athlete, I sort of make this joke, like, cause I felt like they said that all the time. Like I remember I had a broken wrist and they were like, oh, he can play. He can't make it worse. It's just a pain management thing. And I was like, wow, you guys have a really high tolerance for my pain. Like, geesh. And the truth of it is for me, like I felt like, like you have a broken wrist. This is a 4 to 6 week injury. If you let it heal, but like, if I'm getting it hurt every week, is it still a 4 to 6 week injury, So, but no, it's definitely a team effort that way. But I think those conversations might be slightly different than people realize.
And Mahomes, the Chiefs, their bid for a three-peat. How realistic then? Once we get to the dance,
it's realistic, but it's not guaranteed. I think one of the lessons that I've learned in my career is that it really does not matter. Besides home field advantage, it does not matter what your record was during the regular season, and I think that's why you heard Mike Holmgren talk about it in that Sunday night intro. Once you get in the tournament, anything can happen. We're all 0-0. In 2010, Pete Carroll came to the Seahawks as head coach. We were 7-9 that year. We won the division, had a lot of adversity, but we won the division. So we make the playoffs and we host a playoff game. We host the defending world champs, the New Orleans Saints. They were really hot at the time. Drew Brees, Sean Payton, all the stars. They had all kinds of weapons. And everyone was like, the Saints shouldn't have to go out to Seattle to play them. They were 7-9. But Pete Carroll did a great job of getting us to believe that it didn't matter. Like we were 0-0 and so were they. We were not 7-9. They were not 11 and whatever, like 12 and whatever. Like, no, doesn't matter. It matters who wins. It's like a Little Giants speech, kind of. It was just
poll.
like
one time.
It was one of, yeah. And that's legit. Like that is legit. Like, and I would even say like, take a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, like late in the year. I'm not sure what the schedule is. I usually have the schedule up in front of me, but there's some team that is a playoff team that has to play the Cincinnati Bengals late in the year. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Like, no one wants to play Cincinnati. Like you had mentioned it earlier, Mike Tomlin's more afraid of Joe Burrow than he is of Lamar Jackson. Yeah, and he should be. That offense is like crazy. There's an offensive coordinator there named Dan Pitcher of Cincinnati, and I've been around him. I was around him in Indy. D coordinators don't want to go up against that dude. And he's got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like, look out, man. That's a team you don't want to play. And what's their record? Their record's like, I usually write their records down of all the teams. Their record's so bad, I didn't even write their record down. It's like
6-8.
But that doesn't mean.
Yeah. Bengals, Browns, Steelers.
But that doesn't mean like, yeah. So like, if you're going to tell me that like a team couldn't knock off the 1 seed, even if it is Kansas City, like it could happen. It's not college football. It's pro football. That's why they say any given Sunday. So, if you're not playing your best football at the end, but having said that, I do believe in Kansas City globally. I think that they're really special, but has it been their best year? No, it hasn't. It really hasn't. So they got to get hot at the right time, just like everybody else.
Love the Dan Pitcher reference too. We've had him. We've chatted with him several times. The pride of SUNY Cortland, man.
Really?
He has done a hell of a job this year. It's kind of been overshadowed by how bad the defense has been, but man, they are humming on offense. And I don't know. It's gonna be tough for them to sneak in. I think Denver beating Indy, where they have like a 2-game cushion.
No,
now?
they're not sneaking in.
3 games.
No, they're not sneaking in.
They're not getting in.
It's gonna be Denver or the Chargers for that last spot in the AFC. It looks like, and it's a week to week thing. Like 2 weeks ago, people said, "Oh, the Chargers." Then the Chargers go lay an egg and get spanked by Tampa. So, but I think Denver. What's interesting about Denver is that they really didn't play that well offensively, and they still got the win. Like Bo Nix didn't carry the team. Their defense scored. Special teams was incredible. And then Bo Nix played well enough. So like, I just think the teams, if you're looking to bet on a team, the teams that have a young developing quarterback who's improving while the team is still able to win games on the way to developing your quarterback. I mean, that's just really been like, I think what's been so impressive about Sean Payton. A lot of people just like, oh, we can't win this year with a young quarterback. We got to rebuild. Well, no, like the Hall of Fame caliber coaches, they find a way to win games as you're developing. And that's, that I think that's impressive.
Man, you've been unbelievable. I just want to talk to you for hours. Last one though for you. Is there a young quarterback? Maybe it is Bo Nix. Is there a quarterback that you just find yourself wanting to watch each week that's impressing you?
Well, I think Jaden Daniels is really impressive. He's kind of been under the radar lately because their team hasn't played quite as good as they did early on. But Jaden's great. He's a great player. But I think the guy that, and I think it's kind of obvious to everybody. I mean, he's breaking NFL records in terms of like completion percentage and that Cliff Kingsbury offense, and doing a good job running the ball. Protecting himself after the rib injury. But a guy that nobody's talking about, and I actually thought that he probably should have been the first pick overall in the draft, is Drake May. Either Drake or Jaden, those two guys to me should have been the first pick in the draft. And Drake May is on a team that, I mean, they're on the struggle bus. They're not doing much of anything well right now. A lot of first time head coach, a first time quarterback. He didn't start the season. Like there's just they don't have a lot of weapons. Expectations are stupid high here in New England. But I think Drake May is like probably the bright spot for that team. And if you want to watch a guy kind of like a buy low, sell high kind of situation, like he is that guy. And so much of being a quarterback, yes, it's like what you do as a player, but I think almost more of it is who you are as a leader and like things that come with that. Body language during a game, who you are at the podium. I think if you really listen to how people talk at the podium, quarterbacks, they say, we got to do better. A lot of them say, we got to do better when the quarterback, like we can't turn the ball over when the quarterback turned the ball over. And then like they take the credit, like, oh, I had a good game today. I was able to get this guy. I was able to like, so it's that like I versus we thing. And I think just having spent time with a lot of these quarterbacks, Drake is just off the charts at that leadership side of it, which to me matters just as much as, can you make the throws? A lot of guys in the NFL who can make the throws. Most of them are backups. It's like the guys who can do it at the moment of truth, do it while injured, and have that like intangible leadership quality where you're the guy that everyone wants to go into battle with, quote unquote. That's what the difference is between, again, good versus great.
Because he's got legitimate excuses all over the place, all over the field. Really. I mean, look at this roster that Bill Belichick kind of left him. Greatest coach ever. Some of those draft selections leave a little bit to be desired, but I haven't been as locked into Drake May's pressers. That's interesting that he just kind of knows what to say.
Well, and also just, I think like, because what's fun to watch is more than watching a press conference. What's fun to watch is how they play. And so, the Patriots, they finish up here, or I should say the Bills finish up with, because you're going to want to watch Josh Allen. The Bills finish up with the Patriots twice and the Jets once. And like, I think that would be like an interesting, like if you're going to pick a team to watch the rest of the way, you watch the Bills and you get to watch different styles of quarterback play. But the Patriots will be done once the playoffs come, and then it'll be like your only chance to watch a playoff a young playoff quarterback would be a Bo Nix, who plays a lot like Drew Brees to me, but probably a better runner. And then you're going to get to watch Jaden Daniels. And I don't have a good comp for Jaden Daniels. He's a little bit of a unicorn. He's a very, very exciting. What he looks like to me is he looks like a quarterback in college playing in the NFL. And it almost never translates where a Heisman Trophy winner plays as well in the NFL as he does in college right away. But for Jaden Daniels, it's just been simple. It's almost like the Jordan Love thing early with the Packers. They're so young, they don't even know what they're doing. I feel that way about Jaden Daniels. He's been really impressive.
What's your advice for Caleb Williams then? We kind of skimmed past that. It hasn't been quite.
I've had red flags for the whole. Yeah. I think my advice for him is to, you need to really look in the mirror. Like, everyone's making excuses for you because of like the wow plays that you're capable of. But just starting this season, they brought in all this great talent around him, like offensively, far more than Justin Fields had. Like, Justin Fields got blamed for everything in Chicago last year. And now on the flip side, you've got a different young quarterback who everyone's making excuses for everything. So I don't get if I'm Justin Fields, I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, what's going on? But basically, he takes all these sacks and everyone's like, oh, the O-line stinks. Like, turn on the tape. It's not the O-line, not usually. And then they blame the offensive coordinator. So they got rid of the offensive coordinator. Then they blame the head coach because the quarterback screwed up the time management thing at the end of that game. So they blame the head coach. So he got fired. And now they have a new interim OC and a new interim head coach. And it's just excuse after excuse. The body language I mentioned earlier that I think is so important. I think he gets a failing grade with body language. So I feel bad. Like, I wouldn't expect, the beauty for a young quarterback is if you come into a great organization who understands top to bottom how to train up a quarterback. And there's teams that know how to do that well. There are teams who don't know how to do that well. Jets, Carolina, Chicago. There's teams that have just been failing at that for years. So that part's not all on him, but I guess my advice to him would be, hey, take a long look in the mirror and don't listen to everyone else making excuses, and let's fix what you can fix. And being allergic to throwing the ball away isn't fixing the problem. Taking more sacks isn't going to help anybody. Congratulations. Yes, you're not throwing interceptions, but you're also a wait and see thrower. You're waiting to see if people are open instead of cutting it loose and anticipating, helping out the team, maybe hitting a check down when a check down is, kind of that Mike Holmgren thing, like 2nd and 4 is good for the team. So it's I feel like I'm throwing rocks or being a hater. I guess I'm just sort of saying, if I was in a closed door meeting with the quarterbacks and I'm coaching the quarterbacks and he's my quarterback, I'd have to get him to on a path to success for himself and also for the team and for the guys around him. And it's going to take hard coaching. Let's look in the mirror. We can't worry about other stuff. And I don't know. I just think for me, what translates to the NFL game is consistency and some of this other stuff that helps the people around you more so than the wow scramble play.
Yeah.
And
so you had those red flags, like you said, coming in where maybe most didn't.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, I had a little bit of the same red flags for Drake May when he went to New England, because it's not fertile soil for success right now. If you could do what Bo Nix is doing, then go to Denver, a team with a really good defense, a coach who's been there, done it, trained up a Hall of Fame quarterback, coached under some really amazing head coaches. And he's an icon. I think that soil's more fertile for success. But again, you could say to me, well, what about Jaden Daniels? How is that working so well? And I think that's just why I'm so impressed. But I also think there's something to the college game bleeding into the NFL game. Cliff Kingsbury learning what he learned as a head coach, taking a year off, coming in and running kind of and I don't mean this negatively, I kind of mean this complimentary, a college offense for a young quarterback, and like, boom, we got answers. Like, we're not trying to prove how smart we are. We're just trying to prove that we have an answer. Like, here's our answer. You know, do we have 12 answers? No, we have 2 answers, but we're getting to the first one in the first half and we're getting to the second one in the second half. And we're proving that we have an answer. You're not going to catch us off guard. And so, like, right or wrong, fair or unfair, the number 1 pick in the draft at quarterback is going to get compared to the other guys in his draft class that are having success, that are playing well, that are, you know, in line for sustained success.
Well, holy shit, we're all a lot smarter for listening to you, Matt Hasselbeck, for an hour plus. Man,
I always feel so bad when I criticize anybody. I feel bad when I criticize anybody, Tyler. I don't know.
Well, hey, it's not all flowers and puppies and rainbows. I mean, football's a hard game. Not everybody wins, right?
It's true.
Great.
It's true.
Yeah.
Although we have more ties now. So, but it's good to talk to you. It's almost like a therapy session. I feel like I end up doing all the talking. I apologize for that.
Hey, you can talk as long as you want, man. That was awesome. Thank you so much, and congrats on the coaching success. And, you know, you can always, you got something to say? We're here for you any day, anytime.
All right. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll call you into game plan. What was that play in your high school play? 22. What was it?
It was pretty simple. You know, we were Section 6 Class D, graduated about 45, but it was wing right, 22 jet pass.
Okay.
Just a simple fake up the gut, take one step and launch it. One read. I was a one read
22 jet pass.
I couldn't get to that second read.
Okay, so listen, we're taking nominations. I'm going to put that in with my coaching staff at Ensworth, and we're going to see if we can put in the wing right 22 jet pass in your honor. Okay, Andy Reid takes advice from all places trying to get plays. We'll go into the archives there. What was the name of your high school?
There's a catch though. Oh, it was Ellicottville Central here, about an hour south of Buffalo. But we did run the ball like 40 times before we'd call it. So, you know, we're bringing everybody into the box. So
we like to run the ball. It's okay. Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, we'll call it Ellicottville. Is that what you said?
Ellicottville. Yes.
Okay. That's what we'll call it. Ellicottville right. Also known as 22 jet pass. Let's go. On one. Ready? Break.
Beautiful. Thank you, Matt.
All right, Tyler. See you, man.